My journal. I'm Steffanie Rivers. Welcome to the conversation. You're watching the TriCast of my video commentary. It's TriCast on YouTube and Facebook Live and LinkedIn. So if you are new to the conversation, we want to welcome you. And if you are returning to the conversation, we want to welcome you back. Today, we want to talk about something that's, we're in the middle of the election season, and a lot of states are having early voting right now. So I will say up front that if you there's still time for you to early vote, or you could wait to November 3rd and vote on election day, but it's probably going to be very busy as far as the numbers. About 50 million people have voted so far for early voting in this election. Now, again, if you are new to the conversation, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so the next time I post videos, you'll be one of the first people to know. So today, we want to talk about First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump. And essentially, when she came on the scene in 2016, a lot of Americans, a lot of people were unfamiliar with her, and they just wondered, is she aware of, is she just a piece of eye candy for her husband? Or is she aware of his business dealings? Or is she aware of the accusations against him for sexual harassment before they were married and while they were married? Just what is her knowledge, and what is her how involved is she in his day-to-day dealings? Then the video came on the day of the inauguration when she was left at the bottom of the steps. And a lot of people thought, okay, she is living a life under duress, maybe. But as time has gone on, 4 years later, we have now realized the perception of Melania Trump has changed, and not necessarily for the better. We've got tell-all books on her as well as her husband about what they say and about Americans, and what they say about certain issues facing her husband's presidency when they think nobody else is privy to that information. And just recently, there was a case that she tweeted about. Now, the tweet was about the Purdue pharmaceutical company called Purdue Pharma, and how they had agreed to pay an $8 billion fine because they are the manufacturers of opioids. And we know that the opioid epidemic has happened in America, one, because Purdue Pharma failed to let people know the extent of the strength of the drug, and that it could be addictive, could be habit forming. They failed to do that. They pushed the opioids on people, and then so people who got the drug legally through prescriptions, based off of whatever their doctor told them to do and prescribe for them, they essentially got hooked on it without realizing it's the strength that it would have over them, the hold that it would have over them. So First Lady Melania tweeted that Purdue's downfall was proof that her husband, President Donald Trump, was trying to advocate for the health care of Americans. And I want to call her out on that lie, and say, stop lying, that the issue with Purdue Pharma and the $8 billion fine is not something that shows that President Trump is for people's health. If he was so caring and so interested in the health of Americans, he would not be trying to erase, dismantle, cut back the Affordable Health Care Act that essentially offers coverage for people with pre-existing conditions in the middle of a pandemic. He wouldn't be doing that if he really cared. If he really cared, he would, if he thinks that Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act, is so bad, he would have something to replace it. He wouldn't be trying to take something away without having something that he considers to be better. So for the past 4 years since he's been in office, he has been touting that in the next 2 weeks, in the next few weeks, I'm going to have something that's going to be so much better. But 4 years later, we're still waiting on that. In fact, if he really cared, he wouldn't be having his, what is she called? Her name is Kayleigh McEnany, also known as Bullshit Barbie. He wouldn't have her standing up professing to Leslie Stahl during the 60 Minutes interview that's going to air, that it showed him walking out on, handing Leslie Stahl this really thick book of accomplishments that was supposed to be his healthcare accomplishments. It was really a photo op. And if he really had something, if he really cared, Melania, if your husband really cared about people's health and the healthcare industry and creating something that's better, he would have presented that to us. And he certainly would have said that in the interview with Leslie Stahl that he did not say, that he walked out on. So stop trying to usurp other people's work and claim it for your husband's credit. Don't do that. That doesn't make you look good, and we already know that what he's about. So essentially, going back now to the Purdue Pharma $8 billion fine. If you haven't heard already, again, Purdue Pharma, they manufacture opioids. They then pushed it on the American society and then failed to warn people, whether it was the doctors or the doctors who prescribed it to their patients, about its habit-forming potency. And so here we are, and it was just last week that I talked about how the peeing pastor on a flight peed on another passenger because he was under the influence of sleeping pills, not realizing the side effects that those sleeping pills had. That those sleeping pills would have. But all you have to do is read the label. All you have to do is ask questions, and he would have known that. I also talked about last week how pharmaceutical companies, that's what they do. They create pharmaceuticals. They create drugs that in the end they do more harm than good. If you look at the side effects, if you look at what's the list of ingredients, you probably wouldn't take that drug from a drug dealer on the side of the street, but you go to a doctor who prescribes it. You go to a pharmacy and buy it over the counter, and you don't really think it's going to be as harmful, but really it has the same potentially deadly drugs in these supposedly mild pharmaceuticals that you purchase, that you are prescribed. So we have to start paying attention to what we're putting in our bodies, because Purdue Pharma, the company, they agreed to pay the $8 billion. So my question is, where's the $8 billion going? Who is it going to? It's like a government fine. It's not going to pay for rehab for these millions of people who became addicted. It's not going to pay for counseling for these millions of people and their families that were broken up and dismantled because their loved one is now addicted to a drug. The $8 billion is not going for that. Where is the money going? That's a question that we should ask. Two, if Purdue Pharma agreed to pay $8 billion, they probably have double that, triple that they're walking away with. Nobody agrees to pay you $8 billion and that's all they got in the bank. That's not how it works. So what we need to do is find out, where's the money going? How's it going to be used to help the people who were hurt by it? And two, if the company Purdue Pharma, they have agreed to pay the money and then disband. They're going to close the Purdue Pharma. They're going to be no more. And why are they doing that? Not because they care so much, like they might want you to believe. Going back to Melania Trump and her, oh, my husband cares so much. They're not doing that because they care so much and they feel so badly about what they've done. They're doing that to escape future lawsuits. That's what they're doing. Because, and I talked about this, it's funny how things that I talk about, my conversations lead, it's like a linear, sometimes I don't even know I'm on a certain track, and then it ends up that, wow, you talked about this 2 weeks ago, because a couple of weeks ago I talked about the Boy Scouts of America and how the Boy Scouts of America, they filed for bankruptcy. And if you or anyone you know feels like you might have a lawsuit against the Boy Scouts of America, you need to file that lawsuit by the middle of November, because Boy Scouts of America filed for bankruptcy, and they filed for bankruptcy because they're really trying to protect their assets from the thousands of former scouts who claimed that they were sexually assaulted by their scout leader and their assistant scout leader, and the Boy Scouts of America did nothing about it. So it's not that they care so much, it's that they're trying to protect their money, and that's why they're going bankrupt. So now let's go back to Purdue Pharma. It's not that they are so, they feel so badly about you being addicted or your family member being addicted, and that they just, oh, we're just hanging our head and we're going out of business. No, they're going out of business because they're walking away with double or triple the amount of the fine that they have to pay. And they're trying to avoid future lawsuits, because they know that if they lost $8 billion in one lawsuit or one fine, imagine the amount of the fines that are coming once people realize, oh, so they're willing to pay. Now there are going to be other lawsuits. So that's what is going on. So these companies that are creating these pharmaceuticals, we have to be diligent in what we put in our bodies and ask questions and read labels, and don't just let your doctor give you any old thing. Because I was reading something else. I'm a member of the Life Extension Foundation. Look it up, Life Extension Foundation. I'm going to type it in here for you. Life Extension Foundation, they do their own research on I guess you could say pharmaceuticals and vitamins and minerals and how it affects your body. And then they recommend certain things. If you need potassium, you should take this. If you're trying to build your immune system, you should take this. They do their own research and give you information on what is better for you. So Life Extension Foundation, I read an article in there recently about from I guess you could say he's a pharmaceutical journalist. He writes things in that industry, in the healthcare and pharmaceutical industry, about his article talked about how a lot of these drugs that these pharmaceutical companies create are really doing more harm than good. Now, we know that already, but why is it that people continue to take things that are doing them more harm than good? Because maybe if you hear it one more time, you might change your behavior. So that's why people continue to write about it. That's why I continue to talk about it, because it's just like when you have kids, you might tell them, quit running up the steps, but they run up the steps back and forth anyway. Quit going in and out. Quit sticking that fork in the socket. But they don't listen off of that one time. They got to hear it like 500 times, or possibly get electrocuted, or possibly fall down the steps before they really pay attention and change your behavior. So maybe if we continue to tell you, you might really change your behavior after you hear it so many times. So that's why we continue to talk about it. So in the Life Extension Foundation, this article was just talking about how even doctors who are being paid, there is a website that lists all the doctors who are being paid by pharmaceutical companies to promote their product or their drug, even though it might not be the best drug or product for their patients. And so they're really just trying to flood the market with things that are not necessarily to your benefit, but just because your doctor told you, you think, oh, it must be good, but that's not the case. Just because President Trump says, oh, we're rounding the corner on coronavirus, or I have the best healthcare plan ever, but he never shows you anything. But in the meantime, coronavirus cases are going up and people are still continuing to die. You have to be vigilant and you have to ask questions and read other things. Just one thing. Don't just go to one source for your news and information. And that's most important. That's the most important thing that I want to talk to you about. And that I'm going to end with this, which it has something to do with it, but it's kind of like a different viewpoint of it. This past week, we had in the news that a second grand juror in the Breonna Taylor case that was taken from the district attorney and given to the grand jury, a second grand jury has come out and said that Kentucky Attorney General Daniel J. Cameron did not give them the full information or the full options, did not list for them all the options that they had when it came to the charges that they could have filed against the officers in the Breonna Taylor home invasion murder. Okay, they did not tell them everything. And so although I've already spoke to you about my feelings about Dan Cameron and how he is a disgrace to everyone and everybody that he represents, and that he is in the back pocket of the law enforcement in the state of Kentucky. I already told you that he wasn't going to charge anyone, and that he was going to use the grand jury to be his block so that it would look like, oh, they said they're not going to charge anybody, so he could escape having to charge anyone. I told y'all that before it happened. Okay, so now we have to quit looking at people who we know are not going to do the right thing, and we have to start asking questions and doing the right thing ourselves. So I'm saying that to say, although I don't blame the grand jurors in that case, it's hard for me to realize that you mean to tell me all the marching and all the questions and all the stories that were being put out there about the Breonna Taylor case, you happen to get on the grand jury and you thought all you could do is charge wanton endangerment? You thought that's all you could do because that's what he told you? When it's like, how can you sit down and let somebody tell you, oh, all you can do is charge him with shooting in the wall when a woman is dead? You didn't think to ask questions. You didn't think to get, to go do something, y'all. It's 12 of y'all on the grand jury, I guess. I don't care if it was 2 of y'all. One of y'all need to ask some questions. If the other one is sitting there not asking questions, you mean to tell me you see the menu of things that could happen and they just give you soup and you just eat soup and you don't ask where's the meat? You don't ask no questions. That's just something that I would not allow to happen if I'm a part of a situation or organization. You ain't gonna ask me to be on the grand jury about somebody who's dead and all I can do is talk about somebody. I'm just gonna charge you with shooting into the wall. That just don't make no sense to me. So I'm saying we have to ask questions. We have to be more aware of what's going on and not let people just feed us any type of bullshit when we really need to be asking and getting answers off of something else. And so I really hate to curse. I really do. But that just seemed like the most appropriate word at this time. And so going back, when you see, it's hard for me to ignore that First Lady Melania Trump is complicit in the campaign. She's the whole family, they love a headline, but when it comes to creating the storyline to go with it, they don't want to create, they don't want to work and build something that's a true storyline. They just want to throw you a headline and like throwing the dog a bone and let him run over there and get that. So we need to quit being somebody who just runs after headlines, and we need to ask some underlying questions about what's really going on. And I think that's really, I want to end there. If you have someone in your family who became addicted to opioids because they got a prescription, they didn't realize it was going to do what it did, you should pursue your own investigation, ask your own questions of an attorney or someone to find out, hey, this company admitted that they created, manufactured a drug that did more harm than good, and it in fact addicted me or somebody in my family, and I want to know how I can be compensated to help us pay for rehab and or counseling. That's something that you should ask. And who's to say what might come of it? But nothing is going to come of it if you don't ask questions. Okay, so that's it for today. And I want you to be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to find out how to read more about the things that I care about, go to the written version of my journal. I'm going to put it down here for you. It's at eurweb.com. Thank you so much. Be sure to vote, early vote, or at least go on November 3rd and vote. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, and have a super day.